So blurring something inside of Premiere Pro is actually surprisingly simple. Whether it's a face, it's a number plate, or anything else in your shot, you can apply a blur and you can track it so it follows the subject automatically. And in this video, I'm gonna show you the fastest way to do it. Let's go. So this is the clip I'm gonna be working with where the girl is walking towards the camera and she stays somewhat in the center of the frame, but she definitely moves around enough that you would need to track the face. Head over to your effects panel. If you can't see that anywhere, go to window and just make sure effects is checked here. Then we are going to apply the effect called Gaussian blur. Type it in and we can drop and drag this effect onto the video clip. And we can see the effect appear over in the corner here. Now we have a couple of different options. First of all, we can add a mask. And this is going to allow us to select an area of the clip to apply this blurry effect. So because it's a face, we're going to pick the oval shape and we can see this blue circle appear on the frame. Now this inside of this circle is where the blur effect is going to take place. So we can, by just hovering our mouse over these 4 points, we can readjust the size of this oval to cover her face completely. So I'm going to bring that up to her chin, move that across to the side of her face. We're going to move this to the other side. If you find that the face is quite small in the frame, we can either zoom in with our mouse, and wherever our mouse is hovered, that is where we'll zoom into, make it a bit easier, or you can choose the size of the frame here. You can make it bigger or smaller. So we're going to zoom into her face and let's just adjust the size of that properly. Great, so I'm happy with the circle we've made around her face. It's covering her head completely. Now we've got a couple different options for the tracking. If we want to automatically track it, which works, I'd say about 95% of the time. If your subject isn't running around all over the screen, then Premiere Pro tends to do a pretty good job of keeping track of it. If that is the case, we can head over to our play button over here, and this will track for the entirety of the clip. Okay, so if I press play, we can see here, it's gonna scan through our entire 10-second clip, and it's going to try and track our circle onto her face. We'll have a varied success rate depending on how complex your video is. This is quite simple, so I'm hoping it's done a good job. So if I press play, we can see there that it has tracked her face pretty well. No real complaints there. Then with this mask selected, we can go to the blurriness and we can click and drag on this number to the right, and that will increase the number and that will therefore increase the blurriness. You can see there that her face is getting more and more blurred, or you could just type in a number in this box. For example, I could type in 100 and it will be blurriness 100. You can zoom in, you can see that 100, that's well and truly blurred. If you want to ease it up, you can have it a little bit less than that. And if we press play, we can see that her face is very much blurred. Now, if for whatever reason you want to do the keyframing manually, then you can do that by just heading over to the stopwatch icon, making sure you're at the beginning of the timeline or the beginning of where you want the blur to start. And we can click on the stopwatch and that will add a keyframe to that moment in the timeline. And it will say, that is where the mask will be at that moment in the timeline. We could either scrub along with our playhead and say we wanted the mask to be here. We can move it and it will create a new keyframe. So between keyframe 1 and keyframe 2, the mask will move from there to there. Obviously, in this instance, the automatic solution is way more accurate because it's going frame by frame. You can obviously sit here and move it frame by frame if you want. 9 times out of 10, the automatic button will work wonders and it'll do it for you. If the automatic feature is struggling to track onto whatever you're trying to blur, then we can press this button here, which will just move the playhead 1 frame in the video and it will track it for us. And we can manually adjust each time if it hasn't quite got it on the spot we want to. So this takes a little time, but you're guaranteed to get the exact results that you want. There is an option for the feathered edge. So if you want a really harsh edge to the blur, you can see here this has 0 feathering. So it's just a super sharp line. Or we can make it way, way, way more subtle by just turning up this feathering. And you can see these dotted lines at the edge of the feather. So the wider apart they go, the softer the edge of the blur is. I often find that having a feathered edge draws people's attention to the blurred faces way less. So if you just want to have someone blurred out in the background because you didn't get their consent for filming or something, have a bit of a feathered edge. But often in crime documentaries or videos where that person is very obviously on camera and they're not necessarily trying to hide the fact that they were being filmed, they just can't show their face, then they might just have a super sharp edge to the blur. That's what I've noticed from watching TV anyways. Pixelating someone's face is the exact same process, but instead of the Gaussian blur effect we're adding, we add the Mosaic effect. So I'll just show you quickly, drop and drag Mosaic onto the clip. These 2 numbers are the amount of color blocks that the whole thing is split up into. So the higher this number, the more pixels there'll be, and the more detail you get back into the image. So for this example, you'd probably want to try something maybe like 150, 150, 150. And we can see there that, you know, we've got a lot of the detail back. Maybe bring that to just to 100. And we could do the exact same thing where we just add the circle and there we have it. Her face is pixelated and we can just hit the play button. It will track it just like we did earlier. Simple as that, really. So we've got another example here, and this is blurring a number plate on a car. It's the exact same process. Instead of adding a circular mask, we're going to add a custom mask here. So first I'm going to zoom into the area, and then I'm going to click on the free draw Bezier tool. And this is going to allow me to click and draw a dot to dot shape of where I want the mask to be applied. So I'm going to click on the 4 corners here of the number plate. 4, let me zoom in, 5, go, and we can just click and adjust the corners here as well, make it nice and neat. And then with making sure our playhead is at the beginning of the timeline, we can also click the play button, cross our fingers and hope that it hasn't picked it up. Okay, you can see here that it hasn't done a bad job at all. And if I just turn up the blurriness, you can see that number plate is perfectly blurred. If we were to get halfway through the clip and it's messed up, or, you know, it hasn't quite tracked it properly, then we can manually readjust it, press the play button, and then it will reanalyze the clip from that point onwards. If you have a long video clip, only want the small section in the middle for it to be blurred, then just add a cut to the beginning and end section of the clip that you want to have the effect on. Just add the blur to this section here and then leave the other parts without it. My other 2 top tips for you are that you can, number 1, you can invert the mask. So just by clicking this button here, everything else is blurred. Just the area that you've selected will be revealed. Number 2 is that you can keyframe the blurriness. So if we just select the stopwatch icon next to blurriness, I can select, I'll zoom in. So at the beginning of the timeline, we can say that this has 0 blurriness. And then a couple seconds in, we can set that to 40. And we can see now it has more of a subtle blur in effect instead of just a harsh in and out. If for whatever reason you can't see the blurriness, then just make sure you've clicked on the spanner and we can see the preview enabled as well. So that's it for this video. Hope that helped. If you found that useful at all, please consider dropping a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if there are any other videos. So that's it. You know, it's pretty simple. I hope that you learned what you came here to learn. If there's any specific Premiere Pro tutorials you'd like to see, please drop them in the comments below and I will do my best to make them. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.